Good ball played in for Tony Morley. Oh, he must be! And it is! Peter Will!
Hello, and welcome to another bumper edition of Gather Round Again to celebrate the continued success of Aston Villa as we travelled over to Holland, the Netherlands, if you will, Amsterdam in particular, and romped to victory in a 4-1 thrashing of AZ Alkmaar. I am Craig Storrod here with you to gather round again, and I'm delighted to be joined for the first time by Mr. James Barden.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, hello, viewers. Glad to be a part of the offshoot to the channel and my YouTube debut. And obviously, super happy to be talking about yet another emphatic win. 4-1 seems to be becoming quite a common scoreline now. It's been a long time since that's perhaps if it's ever been the case.
Isn't it beautiful? I mean, I was I watched the I actually drove this is unrelated to the game, but these are the tidbits, these are the slices of life that we give you here on the show. I was actually driving back from Canada yesterday, which was a long old drive, so I missed the game entirely, but because I have Paramount Plus over here in the States, I was able to watch a full replay without knowing the score yesterday evening with a takeaway and a glass of rum, and my cat also was here, and I was just astounded. It was like I was watching a European game in some kind of out-of-body experience. It felt like I was watching like a Man City game or a Man United game when they were good, or a Liverpool game when they were good. Just when like an established European force turns up against a club who are doing well domestically and just absolutely rolls them over. And it seems that it just felt very surreal is what I'm saying, James. I don't know if this is really happening or if I'm having some kind of fever dream. What is going on with Aston Villa, and is this the same club that I was supporting a couple of years ago that had Lansbury and Harahan in central midfield?
I'm glad I'm not the only one feeling like that, Craig, if I'm honest. A bit like you, I had a bit of a mad dash back yesterday. The M5 was shut, which didn't help my commute back home. It was a bit touch and go if I was going to see much of the game, but I did manage to get back. But I mean, sort of as Andy and Dan were chatting a bit on the podcast earlier in the week, it feels like we're sort of running out of superlatives at the moment. What is this Aston Villa, and what happened to the club we used to know and love? Because whatever team we've got at the moment, it seems very, very different. It's composed, they're clinical. And again, so as I said, yesterday's victory just felt emphatic. I think so as soon as sort of Bailey had found the net for the first goal, I think there didn't really seem to be any doubt that we were going to go on and win it. And it was a sort of I think on paper, it could have been a really tough game last night, I think. Alkmaar are no pushovers, are they? I mean, they're semi-finalists last year. I mean, they've got a fantastic European pedigree, really. So it could have been a real tough fixture yesterday.
It could have been. It should have been. It was a tough fixture, but for some reason, we've absolutely walked it. So the only thing I can imagine here, James, is that somehow, some way, in a year, obviously we celebrated Unai's 1-year anniversary this week, but somehow, some way, in 1 year, we have become this, not only a Premier League juggernaut, but also now, dare I say, a Europe. I mean, the fact that we're playing in Europe is still a little bit bizarre to me. I haven't got used to it yet after our late run. But the idea that we would go to an established European side, as you say, the idea that this is the toughest fixture on paper in the group, And the idea that we would, I don't know that we played particularly wonderfully. It felt like we were not fully there, but it seems like every time we wanted to punish them or hurt them, we kind of did. And it's just really terribly wonderful. I'm quite thrilled about it. So, James, let's go back to the beginning. Let's talk about the starting lineup. We had a stronger starting lineup than last time. Lots of the rotations that we've seen, certainly in the Carabao Cup game, some of the rotations we've seen in some of the previous rounds, there were less. So we did see Tielemans come in. We did see Leon Bailey come in. But it wasn't. We did see Longley and Diego Carlos come in, so there were changes. There are 4 changes to the team which started the West Ham game, but there weren't 6 or 7 changes as there have been when we've struggled a little bit. Let's say when Dendoncker came in as well, and Chambers came in as well, or let's not get me started on Olsen. But it seems like 4 changes or thereabouts might have been the magic number in terms of not disrupting the flow too much. And also Unai went strong, probably respecting the opposition to your earlier point, and kept the big hitters there. Ollie Watkins, Douglas Luiz, Boubacar Kamara, that little triangle, and of course Captain John McGinn were retained. And that seemed to me in the beginning, before the ball was kicked, to signify that Unai was taking this one quite seriously.
I'd agree, absolutely. I'm going to make the same point. I think in terms of the rotation, I think they got it right this week last night. Sorry, in terms of that number, I think perhaps some of the previous games where they've been making 5-6 changes does perhaps just disrupt the balance. But given the number of games we're potentially going to play this season, if we've got expectations of going deep into this competition, I just don't think it's going to be sustainable to maintain a push on the league and the push deep into Europe, playing the same 11 players week in, week out, because they after Christmas they're just going to sort of start wearing themselves out. They'll start picking up injuries. So I think the balance of sort of the changes was about right, and it was a big game, I think, last night, having sort of stuttered a little bit into the group. Obviously, I think the expectation management is an interesting one as well. Obviously, we are obviously one of the clear favourites to win this tournament, and that sort of brings an expectation level around it, doesn't it? And it's sort of I've lost my track of thought there.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And I think sort of West Ham sort of perhaps has helped and made that a bit harder, I think, as well. Sort of winning it last year, I think. Sort of on the one hand, we can look at it and say, well, if West Ham can win it, so can we. But then on the other hand, you sort of look at it, well, if West Ham win it, then we should be winning it. So I think having sort of stuttered into the group, obviously, I don't think. I mean, the Warsaw sort of loss was a bit of a wake-up call, I think. We couldn't really afford to go away last night and lose that, I think, if we really wanted to sort of set a marker on the tournament. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that was reflected in the team selection. I think that Unai Emery understood that dare I say, without there's nothing really negative to talk about here, but what we have, Unai Emery and us fans perhaps have learned so far this season is that there are perhaps occasions where there are too many changes. There are perhaps occasions where the rhythm is interrupted. Maybe you can afford to bring in, as I say, 3 or 4. But what we've learned, unfortunately, in the Carabao Cup exit, unfortunately in some of our earlier problematic performances in the Europa Conference League group stage, perhaps we've learned the lesson, or Unai has learned the lesson, that not everyone can be relied upon. And at least they can't be relied upon in such a wholesale changey way, which is not a good sentence, but you all know what I mean. Now, what I would also say, to go back to your West Ham reference there, James, now we're not going to talk too much about the West Ham game. If you want to hear some beautiful in-depth analysis, please toggle on over on your smartphone or device to the full show, the Gather Round the Lamp podcast brought to you by underagaslitlamp.com. This week's show features our erstwhile friend Andy and Daniel Bettridge talking about the West Ham victory at the weekend in some detail. So please head over to your traditional podcast feeds to grab that. But what I will say about the West Ham thing is, there's a couple of things. The first thing is West Ham were light years ahead of us even just a couple of years ago. They were challenging towards the top end of the table when we were floundering towards the bottom end of the table. Yes, West Ham had a bad season domestically last year, but they did win the trophy. But West Ham, again, this season have probably regressed, have gone back to their standard kind of space. And we've absolutely smashed them. We've absolutely smashed Brighton. And then to come out here again against Alkmaar with those changes, with those freshening up, it augurs well for the future. And I want to give a particular shout out to our gingerbread man, who has been the subject of some concern, it's fair to say, over the years on this channel and the main show. And that is Leon Bailey. Leon Bailey had a wonderful cameo at the weekend, scored a beautiful goal against West Ham, was rewarded with a start today. Now, Unai Emery has been public in saying that, that he doesn't necessarily trust Leon Bailey in away games because he's been ineffectual, which is quite a bold thing for a manager to come out and say publicly. And I suppose the idea of saying such a thing, James, is to get a reaction out of Leon Bailey. And my goodness, didn't he get a reaction yesterday? Because I dare say Leon Bailey may have been a strong contender for man of the match yesterday. And of course, he opens the scoring on 16 minutes with a beautiful volley on the outside, just on the edge of the penalty area. 13 minutes, I'm sorry. What did you think of Leon Bailey's goal, and what did you think of Leon Bailey's performance overall, James?
Yeah, really good. He's really fired up at the moment, isn't he? I love the goal. And I think the goal demonstrates, where his head's at a bit at the moment. I think that because I thought sort of from where he picked up the ball on the edge of the box, sort of facing away from goal a little bit, I think he only really had one thing in his mind, didn't he? Was to sort of swivel and get his shot off. And it was a sort of a trademark sort of powerful shot from him, really, which sort of flew past the keeper. I don't think the keeper really got very close to it at all. So I think, yeah, I saw a stat. I think I think if my memory serves, is that his third goal in as many appearances. I think we're seeing the best sort of version of Bailey. I think we've probably had since he signed for the club, if I'm honest. And I think sort of, yeah, as you say, what Emery sort of says. I think I've been very impressed with Emery as a man manager. I think he chooses his words very carefully. I think, and obviously sort of looks to get the reaction out of those players. I think.
Yeah, and a reaction we did see. I thought that another man who really stepped up to the plate, who scored the second goal yesterday, is Youri Tielemans. Certainly his best performance in a competitive game for Aston Villa. And on the 23rd minute, he's picked out wonderfully by a beautiful John McGinn assist, who is also another player really going from strength to strength at the moment in this Unai Emery system. A slight miscontrol from Youri, but he eventually got the ball under his spell and just cool as you like nutmegs the goalkeeper, rolls it through his legs and into the waiting arms of the net there. Youri Tielemans has, I would say, dare I say, James? No, I do dare say, because this is what the point of it is. Youri Tielemans, I think, has had a little bit too much to say for himself. Ironic, I know, on a podcast where I have so much to say for myself. But I'm not a professional footballer, and he did an interview with some, I think, Belgian media at the previous international break before this one just gone. Had some less than enchanting words. He then recently clarified those statements in an interview with the Times, and I couldn't help but feel, mate, why don't you let your football do the talking a little bit? You're yet to really hit the ground with You haven't exactly hit the ground running with Aston Villa. Why are you doing all these interviews? Why don't you just keep quiet? Get your head down, settle in, and let your football do the talking. But it shows what I know, because I think yesterday Youri Tielemans certainly let his football do the talking. Firstly, what did you think of Youri Tielemans' performance yesterday? Again, another candidate for man of the match alongside the aforementioned Leon Bailey. And secondly, James, do you think that this system with having Douglas Luiz and Kamara to support some of Youri Tielemans' deficiencies is the key to unlocking this particular door, if you will?
Yeah, great question. I'd have probably had Tielemans as my man of the match. I think both Bailey and Tielemans had great games. And talking, just to touch back on the change in the playing personnel, Emery's obviously learning who he can trust, and I think those guys really sort of did a long way of to sort of proving their worth to the team. I was impressed with Tielemans yesterday. I took with a bit of pinch of salt some of the reports I'd been seeing. I think over the international breaks. I think over the last break there was some reports, wasn't there, that there'd been a bit of a dust up between him and Emery. But certainly the reports I saw, I didn't think were from particularly reputable news sources. So I took some of those with a pinch of salt. And he looked like a player who was enjoying his football last night, which I think is the main thing. But it was interesting, as you sort of touched on, having Kamara, Luiz and Tielemans in the team together, because obviously the way we're sort of setting up at the moment is with having sort of Kamara and Luiz as that sort of double pivot in front of the centre defence. And I think the expectation was always that Tielemans was brought in to sort of challenge one of those two for a place in the team. Now, I think he's a slightly different player, certainly to Kamara. I think Kamara's much more defensive minded, whereas Tielemans is much more progressive. And obviously, I think sort of my thoughts were that Emery could then tailor that depending on the opposition. But so it was interesting. But I was a bit curious when I saw the lineup yesterday and saw that they were all playing. But obviously, sort of Tielemans was pushed a bit further forward, wasn't he? Sort of out a bit wider, opposite the opposite flank to McGinn. And I thought that probably served him a bit better, actually, because I think that's probably where you see the best of him is sort of looking forward, trying to thread some of the passes between the lines for sort of the likes of Bailey and Watkins to run onto. So yeah, I thought he had a really good game, and I was really impressed with his goal. I thought that was great composure. A sort of a difficult ball to sort of control. It got stuck under his feet a little bit, and that could have sort of petered out quite easily there. But he managed to sort of get it out from under his feet and past the keeper. And yeah, I was pleased, really pleased for him to get his first goal.
Yeah, absolutely, and get his first goal he did, and he is when he is in. There's moments where you look at him, or I look at him. Let me not put words in your mouth, James, and I think, this guy's a Rolls Royce. Like, he just oozes that like little bit of sophistication. He's like, he's like the kind of footballer that wouldn't be eating egg and chips on a Friday night. He would be going to, have some duck at some wonderful a la carte fancy restaurant. He's that kind of footballer, and I think that there is a danger with Tielemans that we are not able to accommodate him in the way that he needs to be accommodated in all the fixtures. But I will say, to your point, that this was definitely a step in the right direction. This was definitely more of the Youri Tielemans that we thought we were getting hold of from Leicester City, a guy who can pop up with a goal. He was also instrumental in one of the other goals with some great work in midfield before releasing us on a counter-attack. And it was just brilliant. So long may it continue, Youri, and keep up the good work. So we did have a bit of a let-off from Boubacar Kamara before the half-time whistle. Boubacar lost the ball in an unfortunate position, and the ball falls to, I want to say, Pavlidis, could be wrong, and with the goal gaping before him, he skies it over the bar. Very easily could have been 2-1, but it wasn't. And we go into halftime at 2-0, and job's kind of a good one. And then we come out for the second half, James, and we are I wouldn't say under pressure, but I think there was certainly an element where we were letting them have the ball a little bit, I think, in certain areas. And then the the irony is that the AZ Alkmaar boss, who was actually born in London, as far I learned, which is interesting. He said that Aston Villa's counterattacks are world class, or something to that effect. And boy, oh boy, did he get suckered in with a counterattack here. The ball eventually breaks to Leon Bailey. Leon Bailey is through on goal. He chops back onto his right foot, and I think for all the world he's going to just lay a beautiful pass along the grass for Ollie Watkins to tap into an empty net. He isn't. He doesn't. He takes a shot instead. It was a good shot. It was too hot to handle for the keeper, too cold to hold. Who spills it into the path of Ollie Watkins, who gobbled up his 9th goal of the season in all competitions for Aston Villa, 10th goal already in double figures if you include his England strike. Ollie Watkins, in the form of his life once again, probably won't have an easier goal this season. And just how impressed have you been broadly with the Ollie Watkins version, Ollie Watkins 2.0 under Unai Emery, James? This is a different kettle of fish. This is a different beast to the man that we had under Smith and Gerrard, is it not?
Absolutely. There's a lot post the England game. There's a lot of chat now, isn't there, about how Watkins is the de facto sort of understudy to Kane now, and you've got to sort of say he probably is. As you say, he's in the form of his life at the moment. He just seems to know what to do. I think, yes, he's probably not going to have an easier finish all season than that goal. But it wasn't about the finish, was it? It was about the anticipation, him getting himself in the box and in the right place, knowing that if Bailey was going to get his shot off, and I'd agree. I think watching the chance, I did think, oh yeah, Bailey, here we go, a nice little square ball there to Watkins, and he's got a tap in. But I think, and if it was 0-0, maybe he'd have been a bit more aggrieved with that. But I think at 2-0, and obviously also already being on the score sheet, maybe Bailey's earned the right to take the shot on. But it was, yeah, I thought it was great anticipation from Watkins to sort of to get in the box. I think sort of if you watch the replay of that goal, he was, because he'd been involved with the build up play, Watkins, I think, hadn't he? I think he'd laid it off to Tielemans, who then threaded it through for Bailey, and then he'd
rose like a salmon,
yeah,
to chest the ball down, which is
he got the afterburners on to get into the box. But yeah, he just seems like such a nice guy.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and I didn't want to forget it, and I did forget it, and then you just said it, which has reminded me to not forget it and say it. That movement with Ollie Watkins chesting it down or controlling it, and then putting it into the path of a runner. We saw that also in the West Ham game. I want to say it was him and Bailey exchanged some passes. Watkins squared it for Bailey and didn't quite find it, but it was nearly a very good counter-attacking goal. These kind of patterns and these kind of rhythms is, again, back to the earlier point, like it just drives me a little bit, I don't know, it's just great. We didn't used to have this. These set rhythms, these set patterns, players knowing where to be, players knowing what they're going to do, the clear instructions that are laying out there. And that Ollie Watkins chesting or controlling into the path of an oncoming deep run from a teammate is killing teams. It's ripping them limb from limb. We should have scored or could have scored with it on Sunday or Saturday, whatever day it was, against West Ham, and we certainly did score with it here. But yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Absolutely, Ollie Watkins, nice guy, done good. And it was then time for a fourth, James. Would you believe it? We had a beautiful, beautiful time. I was enjoying it. I was sipping my adult beverage and basking in the glory of a 3-0 scoreline. But we weren't done yet, because just 5 minutes later, we've cut through them again. AZ Alkmaar, that is, like a hot knife through butter. This one was Youri Tielemans doing some great work in midfield. Eventually, Leon Bailey is released by Boubacar Kamara, does some running, holds off a challenge well, does a slide tackle, if you like, a slide tackle pass, which I always love. You got to love a slide tackle pass when you see one, into the path of an onrushing Leon Bailey. Leon Bailey gets to the byline with his speed and with his poise and with his wrong foot. He lays off a quite beautiful ball into the path of an onrushing meatball, who is flying in like a young Kevin Nolan to get on the end of a Kevin Davis knockdown. There's a random reference for you that you probably didn't expect to hear on this show. And there he is. John McGinn, he's in there. He smashes in a goal, 4-0. Thank you very much, AZ Alkmaar, and good night. And then we do the. I don't know if I can do it. I can't do it. Can you do it? Can you do the McGinn?
No.
All right, no.
I was going to have a go, but then I remembered I hurt my wrist a couple of weeks ago in the gym, so I'm not going to try that one.
Oh, dear. Well, listen, if any of you out there have fist injuries, feel free to message James for advice and thoughts. But John McGinn, 4-0. Leon Bailey involved. Boubacar Kamara involved. Youri Tielemans starting it off, and the meatball finishing off the goal there. What were you thinking at this point? 4-0, and it's almost, I don't know if the crowd were chanting it, but it's almost, we score when we want, we score when we want. Aston Villa, we score when we want.
Well, I think at that point it was the Four Seasons song stuck in my head, wasn't it? Oh, what a night! Watching Villa on a Thursday night, and I think I'm going to get used to that one. But yeah, great team goal again. You were just talking about sort of patterns, and that was another example, I think, isn't it? I think by my reckoning, that's the third time McGinn scored this season by making that run across the box, across his defender to the near post. So either get the sort of the flick as in last night, obviously the home game at Mostar, it was his head, and then I think, was it the Everton game, I think, in the league, where he sort of got the volley, but again the same run each time. So I think, yeah, the players are obviously sort of really growing this understanding between each other, and we've just got so much in the locker, haven't we? In terms of the types of goals, either the patient build up from the back, or the sort of the counter, and we sort of seem to be equally devastating, no matter sort of what we're doing. And it's as I say, it just feels that we're dangerous every time we go forwards. And it was certainly the pace, I think, on the third and fourth goals, which caught Alkmaar out last night.
It is an interesting thing to be in an away European tie and to be 4-0 up at this time. Now, unfortunately, we did concede a goal, which we would probably be a little bit disappointed with. Emi Martinez in particular, we know how competitive he is. We know how he loves a clean sheet, and we know that he is particularly driven, World Cup winner, obviously, and all that jazz. But you have to also, I think, dare I say, give some credit there to the finish. That was a bit of a. It was a bit of a finish. I'm trying to find the name of the lad who did it, but that goal there was unstoppable, wasn't it?
Yeah, he took it well, wasn't it? And I think he took it early, which maybe I'll give Martinez the benefit of the doubt. I think my gripe was probably more with Luca Dean. I think going walkabout, it's sort of, I wasn't quite sure. I think he perhaps should have been a bit closer to the runner, maybe. But as I say, that's. Stewing about that, and it probably ruined his night, I think, sort of losing the clean sheet.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just distracted there we may have lost you for a second because my cat has come to say hello and celebrate the victory. This is little Buff. So thank you, Buff. So in the end, we come out 4-1 winners. Matches the score at the weekend against West Ham. James, it puts us in a stronger position certainly than we were previously in the group. And what's more, is there without reading too much into one result, but is there a psychological boost? Is there a psychological benefit? Was this a marker laid down for the rest of the competition? Because let's not forget, AZ Alkmaar, they've only conceded 4 goals in the whole of this season, I believe, in the Dutch Eredivisie, and they've conceded 4 goals at home to us. Their fans looked shocked and bewildered, and when they were kind of headed for the exits. Is it too strong to say here, James, that this is a marker laid down and this now puts the other teams on notice that we are very serious about winning this competition, or is that a step too far?
I don't think it necessarily is. We did have post sort of Hibernian qualifier, I think sort of, as I say, losing the first game against Warsaw was perhaps a bit of a wake-up call, a bit of a cold shower. And then for sort of obviously the home game against Mostar, we toiled for that, and I think it was that last minute goal against Mostar was key here, because I think getting the win there just sort of helped break that shackle a little bit. I think give us the confidence that actually we belong here. We're here by sort of right and merit, and we could go on and perform well. And I think the confidence then in the team, obviously coupled with the form at home in the domestic, I'm a big sort of believer in sort of building momentum in teams, and I think sort of going on these runs. I think that's key. But I think sort of at the halfway point in the group now, I think we're in a real strong sort of position to sort of go forward. I mean, the two on paper stronger teams in the group, we've got to play them at home again, and then obviously we've got the away trip to Mostar. But I need to refresh myself on the overcomplicated rules of this competition, I think, in terms of progression. But I think we're in a strong place to sort of progress, and I think if they weren't already, I think other teams in the tournament are going to be very fearful of coming up against this Villa team.
Well, I have it here in the top right-hand corner of your screen, watcher and listener. This is the Group E table. It is across the top of your forehead, James. You can't necessarily see it with your feed, but I can see it on my feed. Yeah, there it is. There you go. Look, you can probably touch it with your. You could head it into the net like a prime Christian Benteke. So we're joint top of the league with Legia Warsaw. Obviously, we've lost the Legia Warsaw, so that's disappointing. But we do have them to play at home, as well as another game away at Mostar. And you would think if we can pick up another win against AZ Alkmaar in the return fixture in 2 weeks, which based on the evidence of yesterday, we're certainly capable of doing. Obviously football doesn't necessarily pan out like that. That certainly puts us in a position to rest some players, maybe moving forward, not to get too carried away. But I do know if we win the group, we're through. And that is clearly what we'll be aiming to do. So let's have a think about that. You mentioned earlier in the show, this protection, if you like, the squad rotation. Now, we did get to see Douglas Luiz came off. I think he came off around the hour mark. Ollie Watkins didn't complete the 90 minutes. Duran, lots of speculation about him recently, came onto the field. We saw our old friend, the magician Bertrand Traore, come in as well. Dendoncker, the aforementioned Dendoncker, came in as well to give Kamara's legs a rest. So we did enjoy, I guess, the fruits of the 4-1 scoreline by being able to rest some of our senior personnel for the upcoming game against Luton. And this is going to be important, James, moving forward, as you alluded to at the top of the show, because we can't just lean on, as much as we'd like to play the same 11 every week. We know what that means as Villa fans. We've seen that before under Martin O'Neill, our last team that was this good and competing in Europe. He would play the same 11 or 12 week in, week out, and then come March, April, they were done. They were done. They were finished. They ran out of steam, and we fell away. I think 3 years in a row, or certainly 2 of the 3 years we finished in sixth, James. We were
Yeah, I
hotly
remember it well.
competing for Champions League places, and we just ran out of gas. We ran out of steam, and we were unable to maintain it. So how do we manage this squad now, knowing you can't make 6 changes because the team doesn't play very well? We have FA Cup football. We assume, touch wood, we're going to be qualifying into the latter stages of this competition. We want to have an FA Cup run. Obviously, Carabao Cup is gone, and there's also the real possibility with Chelsea and Manchester United floundering that we could at least have a look towards those Champions League places. So how do we balance it? We're missing 4 players still, James. With Moreno is still not there. Ramsey's still not there. Buendia still not there. Ming's still not there. As we move towards the transfer window, this might be a little bit early, a little bit premature, but do we need to reinforce? Do we need to get some players back? How do we keep this going and make sure our legs don't fall off, a la the Martin O'Neill era team?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, we're going to obviously rely on Emery's now, so not a lot here, aren't we? I think, and he is, as I said earlier, I think learning who we can trust in which games now. I think the key is managed rotation. I think, not sort of perhaps the wholesale changes. And I think, the likes of Olsen, Chambers, I'm not convinced. Well, I don't think we'll see too much more of them this season. Just touching on the group qualification, actually, I've just got it up actually. So the team which tops the group goes straight through to the round of 16. The second place team qualifies, but they have to play an additional knockout playoff. So obviously the incentive there would be to finish the group as leaders, and then potentially obviously then have 2 fewer games to play. So yeah, I think in terms of, there was a few links, wasn't there? I think in the gossip pages, sort of perhaps looking at bolstering the squad. I think
Lots of
certainly up
links
front. I
to right
know
backs I've seen in the last couple of days. An
I was
Argentinian
yeah, I was
international.
going to say the other position. Yes, I saw that. I think that was the position I think I probably felt in the summer, maybe, as well as perhaps another out and out. Well, I suppose as a striker, but I think the right back was maybe the one position where I thought we perhaps could do with bringing someone else in. I know sort of Conte can play there, but I'm not. I mean, Conte's had a great season, but he's a much better centre half than a right back. I think I must admit I've not been well, I wouldn't go as far as to have been worried about it, but I'd much prefer to see him playing in the middle, I think, than over at right back. I mean, I know he can play there, and is maybe, as I said, Chambers probably could fill in there, but again, I'd be a bit wary of that. So I think for me, I'd like to see someone come in to maybe sort of not necessarily challenge Matty Cash. I think Matty Cash has had a great season so far, but at least someone there who can sort of offer that depth in the squad.
It would be good to have, I think, 2, designated natural right backs. Yes, Konza can play there, but as you say, it's not his natural position. Yes, Callum Chambers can play there, but also not his natural position. So I think having a second right back who is a fully fledged right back would be beneficial. Now, Kane Kessler-Hayden is obviously someone we have on our books who's doing very well this season with Plymouth. I believe he might have been just injured recently, but has had a solid season in the Championship. It could be that we look to within, but the rumors are that we would be looking to sign perhaps someone of a more established ilk to compete and support Matty Cash. Because again, we don't want to ride these players into the dirt, and we will need some support. And I think particularly Luca Dean and Matty Cash, in fairness to them, they are 2 players who are really struggling to get any kind of break, any kind of rest, because of the injuries we've had at centre half, and also because the releasing of Ashley Young, who is, let's be fair, it seems like that was the right call. Ashley Young not having a wonderful time, conceding penalties, getting sent off. Seems to be struggling at Everton. Although we love Ashley Young, that's probably fair to say that Unai got that one right. And of course, we are yet to see so much as a frog's hair of the beautiful Moreno on the left hand side. So Luka Dean has been pulling up lots of double duty there without too much rest and without too much support. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with those positions. But I would say that this is a wonderful vein of form. It's a wonderful moment to be an Aston Villa fan. Let's quickly get a prediction for Sunday's clash. Luton come to Villa Park. We're looking for our 12th successive home victory. You would think that this is a game we can certainly win, although you don't want to take anyone lightly. And the good thing about the manager, Unai Emery, he will not take anyone lightly. This also could see the triumphant, or maybe not so triumphant, return to Villa Park of our old marvellous goldfish, Marvellous Nakamba. It's my cat. This is my cat here. She's loving life. And, of course, Ross Barkley, who was an incredible signing for at least 6 games until he wasn't. They could be returning to Villa Park on Sunday. Quick prediction for the Luton game. Again, if you want to see or hear the full preview, please check out the main show on all your regular podcast feeds. But James, as we've got you here, what do you think? Sunday, Aston Villa versus Luton Town. What are you saying?
I think this could potentially, in times of old, this would have been a real banana skin for Villa. I think Villa always used to have a horrible habit of doing well in the tough games, and then the games where sort of the teams coming to Villa Park, you would expect to sort of walk over. With typically the games, in my experience, we'd probably end up losing. But as we were saying, this is a different team we've got at the moment. Different manager, different mentality. It's got to be 4-1 again, I think, hasn't it?
Wow, it's a 4-1 score from my buddy James. I think that they're going to come in and park the bus. I think this might be a little bit harder. I think our wonderful counter-attacking skills that we've been waxing lyrical about this afternoon or this morning for me, I don't know that we're going to get the benefit of that, because I don't think that Luton are going to... And that's fine, by the way. That's their prerogative. I don't think they're going to come out like that to be exploited in those spaces. So I think we may need different tools. I think Youri Tielemans, this could be a game for him to unlock those passes. Certainly he has long-range shooting abilities, which some of our other players do not. Could this be an opportunity for Duran, a bit of muscle up there? It'll be interesting to see what our old buddy does, Unai Emery. But I'm going a 2-0. I think we'll score the first goal kind of around the 70-minute mark, and then when Luton have to come out to try and salvage a point, I think we'll kill them again, and we'll get the killer second goal with a few minutes to spare. So I'm going Aston Villa 2, Luton Town 0, our 12th consecutive victory, and we will of course join you on all of our regular channels next week to talk about the Luton game in some more detail. James, thank you so much for jumping on today. How have you found your first experience of the one-man cluster muck that is Gather Round Again?
I thoroughly enjoyed it, Craig. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been great. Obviously, chatting about a 4-1 win, I suppose, probably makes it a bit easier. But really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, James. We hope to see you again. Thank you all so much for watching. This will be available on YouTube. Just to remind you that our marketing budget here is zero. So it is down to you. Share the good word. Share it on your group chat. Share it on your social media. This will be available on YouTube as well as our regular podcast feed in the coming hours. Thank you so much for watching. We have been gathering round again. Aston Villa 4, AZ Alkmaar 1, as the Villa go marching on. Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to Gather Round Again, an Aston Villa podcast. Please like down below and subscribe. Up the Villa.
Daly and Atkinson on one of those great runs. What a run by Daly and Atkinson. Atkinson again. And it's Dwight.